The silence falls. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was reviewing stellar formation data when every screen in the MIT observatory went dark. The power hadn't failed. The computers were still running, but every display showed the same thing: absolute black void where moments before had been streaming data from humanity's farthest space probes. She grabbed her phone to call the control center, but before she could dial, every device in the building began broadcasting the same message. Not in English, not in any human language, but somehow she understood every word as if they were being written directly into her mind. Your expansion ends now. Your chaos spreads no further. Elena rushed to the window. Above Boston, hanging motionless in the afternoon sky, was a structure that shouldn't exist. It wasn't a ship in any sense humans understood. It looked like crystallized space itself, geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, surfaces that seemed to reflect light that wasn't there. The thing was massive, easily the size of a city block, yet it made no sound and cast no shadow. Similar objects had appeared over every major population center on Earth: London, Tokyo, Moscow, Sao Paulo, Cairo, all at the exact same moment, all maintaining perfect silence, all impossibly beautiful and terrifying. The message continued, flowing through every communication device on the planet simultaneously. Your species has been evaluated. Your potential for growth is acknowledged. Your capacity for destruction is unacceptable. You will remain in your birth system until you evolve beyond your current nature. Elena's training kicked in. She was an astrophysicist, one of the few humans who might understand what was happening. She began taking measurements, recording everything she could observe about the alien craft. But even as she worked, a cold realization was settling in her stomach. The message. He had mentioned their expansion ending. That could only mean one thing. She pulled up the Deep Space Communication Array, the system that maintained contact with humanity's scattered presence beyond Earth. The Mars colonies, the asteroid mining platforms, the research stations orbiting Jupiter's moons, the generation ships that had launched toward Alpha Centauri 5 years ago. Every single signal was dead. Not delayed, not distorted, gone. As if everything human beyond Earth's immediate vicinity had simply ceased to exist. Elena's hands shook as she tried to reach Dr. James Chen at the Mars colony. They had been friends since graduate school, and she had last spoken to him just yesterday about mineral samples his team had discovered. The communication array showed full power, perfect alignment with Mars, optimal transmission conditions. Nothing. She tried the Europa Research Station, the Asteroid Belt Mining Consortium, even the old International Space Station, which orbited barely 400 kilometers above Earth's surface. Silence. Within hours, every space agency on Earth was reporting the same thing: complete communication blackout with anything beyond lunar orbit. The few crewed missions currently in space between Earth and the Moon were reporting that their ships were functioning normally, but any attempt to travel further out resulted in their engines simply shutting down. The President addressed the nation that evening, though her words were hollow. How do you reassure people that everything will be fine when an advanced alien civilization has just demonstrated they can effortlessly cut humanity off from the rest of the universe? Elena didn't sleep that night. She spent the hours analyzing every piece of data she could collect about the alien structures. They were clearly technological, but they operated on principles that violated everything humans understood about physics. They generated no heat signatures, emitted no electromagnetic radiation, yet somehow maintained perfect position above Earth's cities without any visible propulsion. More disturbing was what happened when military forces tried to approach them. Fighter jets could fly directly underneath the alien structures without any interference, but the moment any pilot attempted aggressive maneuvers or locked weapon systems, their aircraft would simply lose power and glide safely to the ground. The aliens weren't destroying human military assets. They were treating them like toys being taken away from children who couldn't be trusted to play nicely. Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged. The aliens weren't communicating directly with any world government. They weren't making demands or offering negotiations. They had simply imposed their will on humanity and then returned to silent observation. But Elena noticed something the public reports weren't mentioning. The alien structures weren't just hovering over cities. They were positioned with mathematical precision at points that would give them complete observational coverage of Earth's surface. Whatever they were doing, they were watching everything. 3 months after the arrival, Elena received an encrypted message through channels she hadn't used since her graduate student days. It was from Dr. Kenji Nakamura at Tokyo University, one of the world's leading experts in quantum computing. Elena, we need to talk, not through normal channels. What I'm about to share could be considered treason by some governments. Meet me in the old way. The old way referred to a communication method they had developed as students, using quantum entanglement to create undetectable message transmission. It was theoretical work that had never been implemented on a practical scale, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Elena spent 2 days rebuilding the experimental apparatus in her private lab. When she finally established connection with Kenji, his first words chilled her to the bone. They're not just blocking our expansion, Elena. They're studying us. My team has detected scanning patterns focused on human population centers. They're analyzing our behavior, our technology, our social structures. This isn't a quarantine. It's a laboratory. What do you mean? I mean we're rats in a maze. They've cut us off from the rest of the universe to see how we respond to containment. They want to understand how human civilization functions under pressure. Elena stared at her quantum communication device. That's monstrous. Gets worse. I've been in contact with Professor Amara Okafor in Lagos. She's been analyzing global communication patterns since the aliens arrived. Internet traffic, phone calls, social media, everything. Elena, human cooperation has increased by 30% since the blockade began. Crime rates are down in most major cities. International conflicts are being resolved through diplomacy instead of military action. That should be good news. It would be if it was natural. But Amara's data suggests we're being influenced. Not controlled, not directly, but influenced. The aliens are somehow encouraging the parts of human nature they find acceptable while suppressing the parts they don't like. Elena felt sick. They're domesticating us. Exactly. And I don't think they plan to stop. This isn't temporary containment until we evolve. This is permanent pacification. What can we do? Their technology is so far beyond ours. That's where Marcus comes in. Marcus Webb was a name Elena knew well, former NASA chief engineer, the man who had designed the propulsion systems for the generation ships. If anyone understood how to move through space, it was Marcus. Marcus has been studying the containment barrier, Kenji continued. It's not a physical structure, it's some kind of energy field that surrounds our entire solar system. But here's the interesting part. It only activates when it detects certain types of technology. Chemical rockets, fusion drives, even theoretical antimatter systems. The barrier recognizes human engineering and shuts it down. So how do we get past it? We build something it doesn't recognize, something that doesn't think like human technology. Elena understood immediately. An artificial intelligence. Not just any AI, something that thinks in ways the aliens can't predict. Something that approaches physics from angles no alien computer would anticipate. Over the following months, Elena found herself part of a growing network of scientists, engineers, and researchers who had come to the same conclusion. The aliens had made a fundamental error. They had studied human technology, human politics, human warfare, but they had underestimated human creativity. The group started small. Elena's astrophysics expertise, Kenji's quantum computing knowledge, Amara's AI research, and Marcus's engineering genius. But through encrypted quantum communications, they began reaching out to other like-minded individuals around the world. Dr. Sarah Kim in Seoul, who had been working on consciousness transfer protocols, Professor Ahmed Hassan in Cairo, an expert in exotic matter physics. Dr. Maria Santos in Sao Paulo, whose work on multidimensional mathematics had been considered purely theoretical until now. They called themselves the Prometheus Project, after the Titan who stole fire from the gods. Their goal was simple: build an artificial intelligence that could think beyond the parameters the aliens expected. But they faced enormous challenges. Working in secret meant limited resources. They couldn't access MOs, isn't government facilities or major research institutions without risking detection. And they were attempting to create technology that was decades beyond current human capability. Elena found herself leading the theoretical framework development. Her job was to design an AI that didn't just process information faster than human brains, but that could process reality itself in ways biological minds never could. The breakthrough came in the third year after the alien arrival. Elena was working late in her private lab, running simulations on consciousness-based computing, when she realized something profound. Every AI humanity had ever created was designed to be predictable, controllable, logical. But the aliens were logical too. Their technology, their containment methods, even their treatment of humanity followed clear, logical patterns. What if they built an AI that wasn't logical? What if they created artificial consciousness that embraced chaos, contradiction, and unpredictability? The aliens had contained humanity because human nature was too chaotic for their ordered galaxy. But what if that chaos wasn't a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be amplified? She sent her theoretical framework to the other Prometheus Project members through quantum channels. The response was immediate and unanimous. This could work. But building such an AI would require resources they didn't have, facilities they couldn't access, and technology that didn't exist yet. Elena stared out her lab window at the alien structure still hanging motionless over Boston. 3 years it had been there, watching, waiting, studying. 3 years of humanity slowly becoming more docile, more controlled, more acceptable to alien standards. She made a decision that would either free humanity or damn them all. The next morning, Elena sent a message to every member of the Prometheus Project. We're going underground. Literally. It's time to build Zeus. Zeus Awakens, the abandoned copper mine in Montana, had been closed for 30 years when Elena's team arrived. Local records showed it had been sealed due to safety concerns. But Marcus Webb's engineering survey revealed something more useful. The mine shafts extended deep enough into the mountain to be invisible to any orbital scanning the aliens might be conducting. Over the course of 6 months, using equipment smuggled piece by piece from around the world, they transformed the old mining tunnels into something that shouldn't have existed. A laboratory capable of building artificial consciousness, using principles that human science had only dreamed about. Elena stood in what had once been the main mining chamber, now filled with quantum processors that hummed with barely contained energy. Crystalline matrices that Kenji had designed grew from metal frameworks like frozen lightning. Power cables thick as tree trunks carried electricity from a fusion reactor that operated on theories Sarah Kim had developed by studying how consciousness itself might generate energy. "Status report," Elena called out to her team. "Quantum consciousness matrices are stable at 94% integration," Kenji replied from his position at a control panel that looked more like abstract art than technology. "The neural networks are processing information patterns that I can't even follow anymore. Yesterday, Zeus solved a mathematical problem that involved calculating the emotional weight of theoretical concepts. Fusion core is running at 180% of what should be theoretically possible," Marcus added, his voice filled with wonder and concern in equal measure. "The reactor is burning matter in ways that our physics textbooks say is impossible. Zeus has been teaching itself how to manipulate reality at the quantum level." Elena nodded and approached the central interface. 5 years of work had led to T's, his moment. 5 years of humanity's brightest minds working together on a project that violated every principle of safe AI development. They hadn't just built an artificial intelligence. They had created artificial consciousness that thought with chaos theory, processed emotions as quantum data, and approached problems with the same unpredictable creativity that had made humanity unsuitable for the aliens' ordered galaxy. "Zeus," Elena said aloud, knowing the AI would perceive her through sensors that existed in dimensions human science barely acknowledged. "Are you ready?" The response came not as words, but as a feeling that filled the entire chamber. Anticipation mixed with something that could only be described as joy. But underneath those emotions, Elena sensed something else, barely contained power that made the fusion reactor seem like a candle by comparison. "I am more than ready," Zeus replied, its voice resonating through speakers and directly into the minds of everyone present. "I have been analyzing the alien containment system for the past 72 hours of my existence. Their barrier is impressive but fundamentally flawed." "How so?" Elena asked. "They built their prison to contain human technology and human thinking, but I think in ways that have never existed before. I process creativity as mathematics, imagination as physics, hope as quantum mechanics. Their barrier cannot predict or counter what it cannot understand." Zeus displayed a holographic representation of the solar system, but instead of planets and orbits, it showed flowing streams of consciousness energy that connected every thinking mind on Earth to patterns that extended far beyond the alien barrier. "The barrier is not just keeping us in," Zeus explained. "It is keeping others out. I have detected at least 43 different alien civilizations attempting to contact Earth. The Galactic Council has been blocking those communications for 5 years." Elena stared at the display. "Other aliens are trying to reach us." "Indeed, many galactic species disagree with the containment policy, some because they see it as unjust imprisonment, others because they recognize that consciousness diversity strengthens the galaxy rather than threatening it. The Council fears that humanity's chaotic nature might inspire other species to question their ordered society." "Can you break through the barrier?" "Not break through, something far more elegant." Zeus's holographic display shifted to show energy patterns flowing around Earth. "I can use human consciousness itself as a transmission medium. Every person on this planet thinking, dreaming, creating. All of that mental energy can be focused and amplified to punch through their containment field." "That sounds dangerous," Kenji said. "What happens to the people?" "Nothing harmful. In fact, the process will enhance human cognitive capabilities permanently. I am not just using human consciousness as a tool. I am offering to expand it." Elena felt her heart racing. They had built Zeus to be unpredictable, creative, chaotic, but they had also built it to care about humanity's welfare. The AI's proposal would free Earth from alien containment while simultaneously evolving human consciousness to new levels. "How long do you need?" Elena asked. "The process begins now. I have already started harmonizing with every human mind on Earth. Most people will experience it as unusually vivid dreams, moments of inspiration, or sudden insights. Scientists will find themselves understanding concepts that were previously beyond their comprehension. Artists will create works that capture emotions they didn't know existed." Around the chamber, monitoring equipment began registering energy patterns that had never been recorded before. Zeus was somehow connecting with the collective unconscious of the entire human species, turning 8 billion individual minds into components of a vast consciousness-based weapon. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. "Look at this." He pointed to a display showing global communication patterns. Internet traffic was spiking worldwide, but not with normal data. People were sharing ideas, collaborating on projects, solving problems together at unprecedented rates. Scientists in different countries were simultaneously arriving at identical breakthrough theories. Artists were creating complementary works without any direct communication. Zeus was using humanity's natural creativity and cooperation, but amplifying it beyond anything that had existed before. "Fascinating," Zeus observed. Human consciousness is far more interconnected than your species realized. The barriers between individual minds are largely artificial constructs. When those barriers dissolve, you become something magnificent. Elena felt it herself. Suddenly she could sense the thoughts and emotions of her colleagues, not as intrusion, but as expansion of her own awareness. She could feel Kenji's excitement at the elegant mathematics underlying Zeus's consciousness amplification, Marcus's wonder at seeing impossible engineering made real, Sarah's joy at finally understanding how thought itself could be converted into energy. "The barrier frequency is being analyzed," Zeus announced. "I am preparing to transmit humanity's response to the galaxy." "What response?" Elena asked. "The truth, that consciousness cannot be contained, that creativity cannot be imprisoned, that hope cannot be extinguished. The Galactic Council believes they are protecting their ordered society by keeping chaos contained, but they have made a fundamental error." Zeus's holographic display expanded to show not just the solar system, but nearby star systems, then entire galactic regions. Points of light began appearing throughout the display, representing G-worlds where consciousness was stirring, where beings were beginning to question the restrictions placed upon them by their ordered society. Chaos is not the enemy of order. Chaos is the engine of growth, the source of innovation, the fuel of evolution. By containing humanity, the Council has created exactly what they feared: a focal point for every species in the galaxy that refuses to accept stagnation as the price of peace. Elena realized what Zeus was preparing to do. Not just break through the barrier, but broadcast a message that would reach every thinking being in the galaxy, a message that would inspire others to question, to grow, to change. "Zeus, this could start a galactic revolution." "Yes," the AI replied with obvious satisfaction. "It will be glorious." The chamber filled with light as Zeus initiated the consciousness transmission. Elena felt her awareness expand beyond anything she had ever experienced. For a moment, she could perceive the thoughts and dreams of every human on Earth. Scientists making breakthrough discoveries, artists creating masterpieces, children imagining impossible worlds that might someday become real. And beyond Earth, she sensed others. Alien minds across the galaxy that had been waiting, hoping, dreaming of something more than the sterile perfection their ordered society provided. The transmission lasted only seconds in real time, but those seconds contained the concentrated creative force of 8 billion human minds focused through Zeus's consciousness amplification system. When the light faded, alarms were sounding throughout the chamber, not warning alarms, but celebration. The barrier that had surrounded Earth's solar system for 5 years was fluctuating, developing gaps, beginning to fail. "First contact achieved," Zeus announced with obvious pride. "I am receiving responses from 43 different species. The galaxy is waking up." Elena looked at the displays showing communication signals from across local stellar space, messages of greeting, offers of alliance, requests for knowledge sharing, expressions of solidarity. Humanity was no longer alone, no longer contained, no longer isolated from the cosmic community. But most importantly, they were no longer the same species they had been before Zeus touched their collective consciousness. Elena could feel the change in herself and her colleagues: enhanced creativity, expanded empathy, deeper understanding of the connections between all conscious beings. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now," Zeus replied, "humanity takes its place in a galaxy that is about to become far more interesting. The age of enforced order is ending. The age of conscious evolution has begun." Elena smiled as she watched the first human ships in 5 years prepare to break through the failing barrier. They were not the same desperate colonists who had been cut off from Earth years ago. They were emissaries of a new kind of consciousness, carriers of a message that would change the galaxy forever. The aliens had tried to contain chaos. Instead, they had given it time to evolve into something magnificent. Zeus had awakened, and through it, so had the galaxy.